So with that, I'll hand off the discussion to Mason. Okay, and Mason, you just have to unmute yourself, and I could go through the slides for you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, David. Thanks for having me. We're a technology company that helps small to medium businesses and financial institutions issue and manage their securities on the blockchain. So far, we've helped companies comply in over 50 countries with their local regulations. Our customers, for example, are doing the first F1 IPO here in the US. We have a 40 Act fund as well. It's a registered mutual fund. We're helping them sort of get through the process and manage the technology. And so far, our clients have processed about $500 million through our platform. Clients are seeking to raise about $3 billion plus. We've had over 40 customers signed and actually using our technology since inception in 2017. Next slide.
Okay, yeah, just let me know if I miss moving it over.
And so far as these companies and issuers are getting through the process, they might be fundraising an additional round of equity. It might be their first round of equity. It might be for a new fund. They might be putting an existing fund on the blockchain as well. And so our technology helps them fundraise and get through the offering. And let's say they raise money for 10 shares in their company. We take those 10 shares and now we digitally represent those 10 shares on the blockchain. Those may go on to trade in secondary markets. So with this infrastructure, not only can you raise money, but you can also have the ability to buy and sell. And so a company might be able to allow for the trading of their shares. Investors can, through our technology, invest in offerings that these companies have. And they can now buy and sell these securities on the blockchain as well. And our technology just makes it a very traditional and seamless experience. Next slide. And so I was sort of talking about a company might fundraise, there might be 10 shares, and now we have to reflect those 10 shares on the blockchain. So how exactly does that happen, and how does the technology look under the hood? So these blockchains have something called smart contracts. These smart contracts are used to define relationships between different people. In this case, it's a relationship between the company and the investors that hold equity. Basically, we try to get these smart contracts to resemble the paper shares. The same rules that exist in the paper shares that you would own, we reflect those onto the blockchain into these smart contracts. And these smart contracts, they contain all of the regulatory and compliance requirements, and those are built into the smart contracts. So all the rules for who can own what, or when can someone sell and when can they not sell, all those rule sets are built into the smart contracts. And the reason a security sort of comes into play here is we're using the traditional blockchain wallets to deploy the smart contract and to administer it on an ongoing basis. And so if a new investor comes in and buys a new share, they now have to interact with the smart contract, and we have to make sure it happens in a secure manner. If the rules and regulations around the shares for a company change, an administrator has to now come in and to administer the smart contract and do so securely. Let's go on to the next slide. Yep. And so in these smart contracts, what are all the different actions that are possible? And so you may need to authorize an investor to purchase a share, or you need to authorize a new investor interact with the company. And so these smart contracts can authorize new addresses to participate and interact with the shares of a company. It's not a completely public network. It's more of a permission network that we use for securities on the blockchain. The other thing, the other action that's possible with these smart contracts, for example, is the ability to freeze someone's shares. What if someone loses their wallets? How do you set up a process to perhaps investigate that situation and to correct the issue by putting the shares into a new wallet. So the abilities to freeze an address or freeze someone's shares, to revoke their shares, and to reassign them somewhere else are all things that are possible in these smart contracts as well, just to make sure that every action that occurs traditionally in the financial markets today, we can also reflect on the blockchain. Let's go to the next slide. And to enable all of this, obviously, there has to be certain permissions on the smart contracts, just like on paper contracts. Not everyone in the company can sign on behalf of the company. It's usually the CEO or someone that's authorized and delegated to sign on behalf of the company. And so we have something similar on the blockchain as well. So with these smart contracts, there are owners, there are administrators, and there are investors as well. So the owner is usually the issuer. They can assign or revoke administrator access and to also participate in the actions that we mentioned on the previous slide. And then the owners can designate administrators. And so in this case, we have Tokensoft. We have a transfer agent called DTAC owned by Tokensoft. That is the registrar and the transfer agent that is managing the shares of a company on behalf of the company. And then there's the issuer or the company that is the one that's actually issuing the shares, whose equity is being sold to investors. And so in this case, the transfer agent is the administrator, and they have the ability to do all those actions I mentioned on the previous slide, like authorize new investors, freeze shares and revoke shares, and then reassign them somewhere else if necessary. And then investors, they don't have, for example, signing authority on behalf of the company. And so investors solely have the ability to buy and sell the share in the company. And they might be retail investors, they might be institutional investors. And so this is why sort of cybersecurity is sort of at the forefront of what we're thinking about, is because being the owner of the smart contract carries a very high level of risk. Being an administrator is a medium level of risk because the owner can always revoke access of the administrator. And so just like in a traditional company, the CEO can always revoke access or signing authority of anyone else. We try to sort of create the same levels and tiers in the smart contract. And so whoever has the highest ability carries the highest risk. And so that's something that we treat very securely. And then someone that has sort of a medium seniority in this tiering is sort of the second tier of risk. And then investors, the way we designed it, there's no risk to the investors. So cybersecurity matters less for the investor than it does for the other two. Let's go on to the next slide.
Okay. So I think that may be the last slide I have for you.
No, this is it. As
you may want to just talk to it then if there's another one.
Yeah. And so as someone that is a issuer of shares in a company, and as a technology company that's trying to help other issuers that are also managing their shares on the blockchain, we ask questions like, what is the most secure way to deploy this smart contract? Are we doing it in the most secure manner possible? And then what happens if the smart contract is compromised? What happens if the issuer's wallet is compromised? For the administrators, again, what is the most secure way for them to interact with the smart contract? They have to do so at high throughput because there's a lot of people interacting with these shares. And then what happens if their keys are compromised? What can we do to remediate that problem? And then investors, what happens if they lose access? What if they're not secure? What are the procedures for recovery there? And so these are some of the questions that we ask that sort of led to us sort of engaging in a partnership with Hub Security. And a couple things that sort of led us there that we liked are, number one, the The tools are FIPS 140, are designed to be FIPS 140 compliance. Not many tools out there are. I think I'm familiar with Gemalto, but there's not too many tools that can do that level of security. This is basically the highest level is FIPS 140 level 4. Like the background, the Hub Security team is a team that understands cybersecurity, and I'm always hard on our team internally as well as other teams. And so it's nice to meet a team that has that level of experience that can play in this field. And so we announced a partnership with Hub Security, basically saying that all of the smart contracts deployed out of our transfer agent would be done through Hub Security tooling. And we're really excited about this, to be able to bring this level of cybersecurity and tooling to the market and to our customers as well. So David, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Mason. That was great.